A frustrating and tough night all around for the Broncos as they fall 42-17 in Detroit. The Broncos postgame show starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us here in studio. I am Phil Milani alongside Nick Ferguson. Nick, this game all around, offense, defense, special teams, not what the Broncos were hoping for, especially with so much on the line. Your thoughts on what happened in the Motor City?
Yeah, they did not start fast. I know that was a point of emphasis this week in practice for the team to get out fast. You're going into a hostile environment. And Phil, if you wanted to talk about playoffs, which everyone's been talking about, this was an early audition for the playoffs. Great playoff environment. On the road, it was loud. Jared Goff was efficient. And the Detroit Lions controlled and dominated both lines of scrimmage. So if you wanted a playoff environment, you got it, but the Broncos were not able to handle it right now.
Let's get to the highlights here. It was 21-0 in the third quarter when the Broncos came alive. L.J. Humphrey, a jump ball in the end zone. First Broncos points on the opening drive of the second half this season. Okay, it's 21-7. Are they going to get back in it? The Lions respond right away, though. Sam Laporta, 3 touchdowns on the night. Detroit's rookies were amazing. Jahmyr Gibbs scored the other 2 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, the most by rookies since 1979. The game, though, sort of came down to this sequence near the goal line for the Broncos on the next possession. Jaleel McLaughlin stopped short. It looked like maybe he crossed, but hey, it's tough to challenge those ones. The next play, Javonte Williams on the pitch out. His knee down before the ball crossed the goal line. Again, tough to challenge a play like that where you're just talking about positioning. Then on 4th down, Michael Burton gets in here, but they call Quinn Miners offsides, and that was sort of all she wrote for the Broncos. They fell 42-17. Let's go out to Detroit and check in with Aric DiLalla and Sidney Jones.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, it was a brutal loss here in Detroit as the Broncos fell 42-17. Aric, looking at the defense to start here, I know Jared Goff, he threw for 5 touchdowns. Put up nearly 300 passing yards, and the run game, they put up 185 yards on the ground too. So, what just wasn't working for this defense today?
Yeah, well, I think they talked about before the game, if you don't stop the run game, it's going to be hard to do everything else. The Lions certainly attacked the middle of the field. The Broncos weren't able to get much pressure on Jared Goff. And I think it all boils down to when you're not playing with a lead and these guys get ahead, they've just got so many weapons that they're difficult to stop. And unfortunately, again, it goes back to the Broncos not being able to get a lead on offense and letting this defense do what it does best. Fortunately, they played the Lions game tonight, and that's why they had the success they did. Yeah,
Aric, you mentioned the offense got off to a slow start, and then they were able to score on the first drive of the second half there. So overall, what did you see from this offense that you think they could improve on moving forward?
Yeah, well, certainly there were some big plays, right? Yeah. The turnover hurts you. You need points there, and to be able to get ahead early, play your game again, stick with the run, dominate time of possessions, those things weren't able to happen. And certainly you just got to be able to string drives together. We saw it there early in the third quarter, in the second half, being able to get points. There was a weird sequence there at one point down by the goal line where it seemed like the Broncos had maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns in a row that weren't ruled scores and an offensive offsides penalty. That kind of changed the game there. The Broncos could have maybe stayed in it a little bit longer, but ultimately that was a big moment.
Yep, well, Phil, we'll head inside the locker room here to hear from a few players, but until then, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, a frustrating night all around. We're back here in studio, Phil Milani alongside Nick Ferguson. Nick, let's start by talking about the Broncos offense. It looked like maybe there was going to be a spark at the beginning. Russ gets Jerry Jeudy involved, but then fumbles the football.
You're right. Here's somewhat of a positive. Jerry Jeudy getting a little bit back on track. He found Jerry Jeudy off the slant route. To me, that's what you wanted to see more of. But the Broncos, 2 sacks on the game. But the problem that did not show up on the stat sheet, pressure, pressure, pressure. And you have to think, Phil, Dan Campbell spent some time around Sean Payton. Yeah. So he had to know what he was going to do in certain situations. And if you look at Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, he was dialing up pressure. You wanted to bring receivers in, he was bringing nickel pressure. You wanted to bring in 2 tight ends, he was bringing second-level pressure. It was pressure, pressure, pressure. And the Broncos offense didn't handle that pressure today.
18 of 32. We haven't seen a completion percentage percentage that low for Russ in a long time here. 223 yards, touchdown, rushing touchdown, and then that fumble. And yeah, it just never seemed like they were able to get into rhythm and a hard time staying out on the field, and that pressure was probably a big reason why.
Well, the other thing that you add to it is that anytime you play on the road, you have to factor in crowd noise. Once again, going back to understanding the atmosphere that you were going. Yes, it was a Saturday game. You played the game on Sunday. No one really cares, and the Detroit Lions fans, they didn't really care. They knew that their team needed the momentum, and they were that 12th man for them. And Russell's crowd noise with the pressure made it really difficult for the Broncos to operate.
Just a tough night all around for this Broncos offense. Let's hear from both Sean Payton and Russell Wilson at the podium after the game.
There wasn't a lot positive for us in that game. Thought those guys did a real good job. The red area, third down, really in all phases. So frustrating night. It's tough to have one of these nights. Obviously, there's a lot at stake. So
we just got to play cleaner. I mean, that's just really, if we can play a little cleaner, play a little sharper. They played well tonight. They played really well, and we could have played better.
Now let's talk about the other side of the ball here, Nick. For the last 7 weeks, really, this Broncos defense has been dominant out there, forcing the takeaways. That was not the case here tonight against the Lions.
The Broncos lost the turnover battle. They were not able to get after the quarterback. 7 QB hits, I believe, but only 2 sacks. The first thing that I recognize in this particular situation, the Broncos miss Nick Bonitto. Having his speed and his pursuit to the quarterback would have been somewhat of a game changer, knowing as though Jared Goff has put the ball on the ground and thrown a couple of interceptions to the opposing team. So no Nick Bonitto, and the Broncos pass rush struggled.
Let's talk about the running game here. Jahmyr Gibbs, the Lions rookie, 11 carries, 100 yards. And then David Montgomery, 7 carries, 85 yards. You knew that this was a two-headed monster back there for Detroit, and we were getting flashbacks to the old Broncos defense.
You got to tip your hat to offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson. He had an excellent game plan for the offense, taking the pressure off of Jared Goff. Quick passes, getting the ball out of his hands. Talk about Montgomery, you talk about Gibbs running the ball. They were effective running outside on the perimeter, a place that we saw the Miami Dolphins effective. But the one thing that I saw, it was fundamental issues with the defense. So it's not something that the Broncos can't correct overall, but it was guys taking the wrong angles. Instead of staying front side, they would run behind the block, exposing the perimeter of the defense. But these are all things that are fixable.
The running game was getting outside, Nick, and it looked like the passing game was over the middle. I mean, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, 7 catches, 112 yards. Sam Laporta, 3 touchdowns on the night. A lot of it was up the middle.
Yeah, because if you go back a week, when you say, well, the Detroit Lions played the Chicago Bears, they couldn't really get a lot going offensively, but they study film and they take advantage of the Broncos defense. And the routes that you're talking about, we're talking about those 12 to 15-yard routes inside between the hashes. And once again, Phil, fundamental issues, not skill issues, fundamental issues. You have to be able to drop back and hit your landmark, knowing as though that's where the quarterback is trying to set you up. Anytime there's an under route, there's an over route. It's football 101. I'm sure when these guys go back and watch the game on both sides of the ball, they're going to be really disappointed with themselves because they let one get away.
Yeah, and Jared Goff, 5 touchdowns, a new career high for him. Felt like he was really in rhythm against this Broncos defense. Let's go back out to Ford Field and check in with the guys out there one more time.
Thanks, Phil. We're inside the locker room here with cornerback Pat Surtain. Pat, brutal loss here in Detroit. Overall, what's the message to the team here following the game?
Yeah, we ain't play up to our level, our standard. And, it goes to show what happens. I just think there was too many plays where we just messed up as a unit. But, we just got to move on to next week. We still in this thing. We got to think of next game mentality at this point. Just go back in the lab and, go to work.
Yeah, Pat, you guys held the Lions off early in the game, but then they were able to score 6 touchdowns. What do you think changed after that first quarter?
I just think we didn't execute just all around, including me. I feel like I was out there not doing my part. And, I just got to get back in the lab as well. But I just feel like, in general, we wasn't executing at a level that we're used to.
Pat, I know Lions tight end Sam Laporta, he put up 3 touchdowns. What made him so difficult to cover tonight?
I just think some plays is either leverage or alignment. Some he made some good catches, but I just think in general they jawed up good plays for him to get open. But we know we're better than that as a unit. So, but he made some good plays down the stretch.
Overall, what were your main takeaways from the run defense tonight? I know the Lions, they put up 185 yards on the ground.
Yeah, man. I just think they executed on all phases of the run game. The perimeter plays, inside zone, stuff like that, that we could fix on and execute on. We're going to go back to the drawing board and understand what's going on, because obviously the next team looking at this game and, looking at plays we struggled on. So we just got to get back, watch the film, and just get better.
Pat, you mentioned moving forward. What does that look like for you guys with 3 meaningful games still left in the season here?
Yeah, it's short margin of error for us. We understand we got 3 games left, 3 important games for us, and it's a key stretch. We got to understand that, this thing ain't over, so we're going to keep on getting better and keep on improving. That's the main thing.
Pat, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Phil, I'll send it back to you.
All right, time to wrap up the postgame show now. Nick, the Broncos lose 42-17. They have 3 more games. They're all practically must-win games now, and they're all against AFC opponents.
Well, let's be totally honest. Even the game tonight, it was a must-win game because this is playoff atmosphere. If you aspire to be a playoff team, you have to be able to win games like this because you go on the road, you're going to face good running games. You're going to face a great defense. So you have to put a collection of plays together to ensure that you can win. And you mentioned it, 3 more games remaining. 2 of their opponents have backup quarterbacks. So I'll remind Broncos country, I know everyone is frustrated tonight because they wanted a better showing from the team. This team is still in the playoff hunt. All they need to do is handle business. Come back home, correct the mistakes, go out on Christmas Eve, and get that all-important win against the Patriots. That's the start. Don't even think about the last 2. You start by winning the game this upcoming Sunday night against the Patriots here at home, a team who's going to bring in a good defense as well.
Yeah, starts with the Patriots coming up next Sunday. But a tough one all around for the Broncos as they fall 42-17. That is going to do it for us. For Nick Ferguson, I am Phil Milani. This has been the Broncos Postgame Show.